Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk about the two biggest things I think are contributing to chronic pain, to injuries, and to this overall deteriorating standard of health that we've got going on in the modern world. These two things are compression and inflammation. From a movement perspective, as I was growing up as an athlete for my entire life, and my body started to break down when I was about 20, 21 years old. I started to develop all these different injuries. I started dislocating my shoulders on multiple occasions, shoulder surgery afterwards. I started to have issues with my knees, my hips, my groins in particular, not being able to access my glutes, overloading areas that shouldn't have been overloaded, and eventually in the end tearing my ACL. I used to think that resolving these injuries was a very, very complex process. I would go to so many different physios, I would go to so many different experts in their fields, and no one could really tell me how to resolve my issues, aside from surgery, aside from only patching over the issues and not actually getting to the root cause. And one thing I've learned over the last 6 years along my journey to going from those chronic injuries, from all those surgeries, and essentially feeling like my body was completely broken, okay, that there was no way out for me in the rest of my life. I was destined to be trapped in this body that I had ended up with as a result of my sport, as a result of poor training practices and poor lifestyle routines, choices and habits. But what I've learned is that it's actually quite simple, okay? The body adapts, the body works in very specific ways, and everybody's body works the same. Nature works the same for everyone. And what I've found to be the biggest contributor to most of the chronic injuries I've seen, almost 99% of the people I work with all present with the one exact same core, fundamental movement patterning and movement competency problems. And that is that we're all compressed, okay? When we become compressed, we start to lose access to space within our body. We start to lose access to actual movement options, for space to move into, to be able to load and use muscles that we want to be able to use to move us forward. Primarily our back chain, our glutes, our hamstrings, our lower back, these big areas, these big, strong, powerful areas, we lose access to them. And generally the compression happens because of our lifestyles, okay? When we become compressed, what tends to happen is we get compressed from the back. Because most of us now lead very sedentary lives, we spend 8, 9, 10 hours a day sitting, and our training practices are less than ideal, which is a topic for another day. But all this leads to compression on the system, okay? Compression. We're being squeezed from the outside in and we've nowhere to go, okay? Think about it. If you're squeezing a water balloon from the outside in, it's got nowhere to go except to break, okay? There's no space to move into, no space to move within, okay? And if you think of the analogy of a water balloon, if we squeeze the water balloon from one side, it's going to push everything. It's going to push all that pressure, all that tension to one part of the body, and it's going to open and eventually burst out the front, okay? And that's exactly what happens with our bodies. When we become compressed, we start to lose access to this posterior chain. We get squeezed from the back. And when we get squeezed from the back, what happens at the front? Everything opens out like this, okay? We start to get this anterior pelvic tilt that everyone is so familiar with. We start to get our feet start to turn outwards. We start to get a flattening of our arches. We start to get a buckling inwards, or this valgus of our knees. Okay, everything becomes squeezed, pushed out the front, squeezed from the outside in, and eventually we start to run out of options. We start to run out of space, okay? All that pressure, all that tension is nowhere to go, and that's what results in chronic pain, chronic tightness, issues with groins. For example, if you've had groin issues or inner knee issues, it's because all this tension is coming on this inside chain here. Because we're being squeezed from the back, we lose access to any use of this posterior chain, and that results in we can't fire our glutes. My glutes aren't activating, and we've got this chronic tension, chronically tight hip flexors, okay? So what we need to do to get rid of that compression is start to restore expansion, okay? This internal torque that we get of compression, what we need to do is start to externally torque our body. We need to regain access to this space to move, okay? Because every time we take a step, we need to be able to move from this external torque. Our body moves from out to in with every step. And when we become compressed, we don't get that out to in anymore. We're constantly in and we're constantly trying to move ourselves forward in space. And that's not how we're designed to move. So we need to restore the space, the expansion, so that then when we take our step, now we can move into that compressive space and transfer it to the expansive space on the opposite side. Same again, boom, expansive, compressive, okay? But when we're compressive like this, now we've nowhere to go. Now we're overloading areas, now the system is compromised, okay? And when we're loading up stuff in the gym, when we're told that having our feet out in the squats is fine, and it is, but we're loading up the barbell and we become compressed, we can't get access to this. Nobody can access the hinge when we're so compressed, and that's what we want to be able to do. Our hinge movement with our hips, this is a powerful position, okay? This is what unlocks range of motion. Because if we need range and space to be able to squat and space to move into, if we're already here now, we're stuck. We need to be able to open, get down, get up, and then move, okay? So compression from a movement perspective is wreaking havoc, okay? And it's actually quite simple. That's where we start with all our clients. That's the basis that our programs are built on. Remove compression as a first step. We have a complete 5-step simplified framework and process to get you out of chronic pain, to resolve your injuries and restore your natural movement abilities. And it's all done on this 5-step process, and removing compression is the first step, okay? That's why it's so important, because it's the most common trend, the most common presentation I see. I've done hundreds of assessments, individualized assessments now, and compression is the number one thing I see show up in almost everyone who's experienced some type of chronic issue. So from a movement perspective, we need to remove compression, restore expansion, restore rotation in the system, because movement happens in spirals. It's rotational in nature. Even a linear movement is rotational in nature. And if you look at your gym program, for example, most of your movements are probably very linear in motion. We need to restore expansion, remove compression, and start to move as nature intended. Inflammation then is a whole other story. Inflammation is coming primarily from our lifestyles, from our nutrition, okay? Processed foods, processed sugars, seed oils, all these foods that are just not natural, that are not found in nature, and we're consuming so much of, is leading to chronic levels of systemic inflammation in our bodies. When we have inflammation in our bodies, we cannot have optimal tissue quality, we cannot maximize energy, and if we step away from the whole health conversation and just talk about it from a chronic pain perspective, when we have high levels of inflammation in our body, it means the quality of our tissues will be poorer. We don't have the nutrient density, the nutrient quality that our tissues require to heal, to function optimally, to recover from exercise, and to give us the output we want when we're exercising. But if we have these chronic levels of inflammation, this basically means that our bodies are constantly trying to get back to this state of balance, okay? We're constantly in the red, in the danger zone, and it leads to poorer tissue quality. So many tendon issues can actually be resolved by just reducing levels of inflammation in your body and removing those inflammation promoting foods. It can be personal care products, perfumes, deodorants, all these things. They're all full of toxins. They all increase the levels of inflammation in our bodies. So we have two very powerful things to be able to resolve chronic pain, to start to restore our love of movement again, our love of being human, our love of being energetic, and feeling like we have control over our bodies, that we can ask our bodies to do whatever we want and restore that confidence in our bodies. But when we have compression from a physical perspective being caused by our lifestyle and our training, and then we've got inflammation being caused by our lifestyle and primarily our nutrition, now we've got two very simplified but very powerful paths and avenues to becoming the type of person we want to be, to removing compression, to starting to move in the way that we want, okay? When you're in pain, and if you're in pain, you will notice it's the only thing you think about from when you wake up in the morning to when you go to bed. And I know what that feels like because I've been there. I felt lost, I felt desperate, and I felt like the solution was too complex for me to actually be able to do anything about it. I would go to this physio, I would go to this expert, I would go to this surgeon, and they were all telling me different things and all made it seem like it was absolutely impossible to actually turn things around and resolve the injuries. And when I started digging into research myself, when I started learning what it is to move well and how your body actually really adapts to training, to the stimulus you give it, what I found is your body is an adaptation machine, okay? And when we start to remove these things that are contributing to the problem, and we start to plug in things that are actually going to give us and move us in the direction of the solution we're looking for, your body will adapt, okay? Don't let anybody ever tell you you're broken, because when that happens, we don't expose our bodies to the things that will actually help us turn everything around. And it really is as simple as that. And now you have two very simplified but very powerful ways to go about doing that. And to take some action away from this, number one is start to restore rotation within your body, okay? So start to forget about the heavy weights for now. Start to restore the movement mechanics that nature designed for us to have, okay? And again, our movement mechanics that we need are external, okay? This expansive nature where I'm externally torquing the system, I'm expanding and I step, and then to explode, I'm internally rotating, okay? That compressive force, we're using the force of the system, the weight of the system, loading up. Think of it, it's like a slingshot, okay? Movement is like a slingshot. We load up, we step, and then boom, we go, okay? So it's this external, internal, external, internal. Same on the opposite side, okay? So I'm external to internal to external to internal. So start to restore this. Really simple way you can do it is using things like baby rock backs. Start to open up the posterior part of the pelvis, start to reduce the compression. That's where most of the compression comes. That's the origin of our compression that we need to start to address as a first, okay? Then you can start to integrate movement patterns like what I've just shown, okay? So we're stepping our leg forward, I load up, I step and I explode and I load up. Start to restore this rotational aspect to your movement. Get away from all these linear movements in the gym. Start to move more throughout your day, okay? That's the first steps. And then start to follow a program that's going to allow you to restore that expansion in a progressive and systematic way. When it comes to reducing inflammation in the system, cut out processed foods, okay? Anything that's packaged, anything that has a list of ingredients, get rid of it. Start to replace it with whole natural foods, okay? High quality grass-fed meats, high quality fruits, high quality fats from animal sources predominantly. Start to simplify your diet, okay? Start to take away all the crap. You don't need it. Keep it simple, keep it natural. If it's not found within nature, if it needs to go through some kind of process of production and refinement in order for it to be put into a piece of plastic wrapping and be on a shelf in a supermarket, then it's probably not going to serve your best interests in terms of maintaining those low levels of inflammation that we would want in our body. One last thing to look at is removing seed oils from your diet. So vegetable oils, things like canola oil, rapeseed oil, anything that is heavily processed and is a seed oil or a oil that is derived from some kind of plant, okay? Focus on things like grass-fed butter, beef tallow, ghee, olive oil is a good source, coconut oil. Keep these sources of fats in your diet, remove the low quality ones, and make sure that you're getting high enough levels of omega-3, okay? Our omega-6 to omega-3 balance is one of the most important markers of our levels of inflammation in our body. So reduce the omega-6, increase the omega-3 from things like wild caught salmon, or consider using an omega-3 to polyphenol blend in order to maximize the results and minimize the inflammation. But these are two really, really important factors. In my 6 to 7 years of research and been on this journey myself, from chronic pain to feeling like my life was over from a physical perspective, to been 7 years down the line, almost 30 years old, and feeling better than I ever have. I'm giving you everything I've learned, all these systems, all the movement, all the health resources and advice that I've learned. I'm combining this into two really, really simple things, okay? And it really is as simple as this. The details of where you need to start, the best way to determine that is with a personal assessment and measuring where you're at so that we can set a platform and move forward. But These are the two areas. Remove compression, start to restore expansion, start to restore this rotational, expansive, compressive. Think of the slingshot, okay? We need to move in, we need to move out, okay? It's this back and forth motion, okay? It's not all linear. Restore expansion, remove compression, reduce inflammation. They're the two key things that are going to set the platform for you to get out of pain no matter what stage you're at. Even if you've got to a really good place. I'm in a really good place now. I feel better than I ever have. I'm almost 30 years old and I feel so much immeasurably better than when I was 20 years old. And it was based off these two key principles. This is at the core of everything, whether you're at the start of your journey or whether you've got to a place where you feel good and you have the physical abilities, your body's feeling amazing every day without pain, and you can do the things you want. These two principles still apply. Comment below, let me know where you think you can make the biggest change. Maybe you're already doing some of these things and you're starting to see the benefits. Share it with me below in the comments. Any questions, let me know in the comments below that are specific to your situation, and I'm happy to advise and help in the best way I can. If you want me to help in the best way I can, check out the links below for all my programs. Like I said, they're all based on the same approach, our 5-step framework to take you from chronic pain, chronic stiffness, to having high levels of resilience, to moving pain-free and rediscovering that joyful, effortless movement. So check out those links below. Leave a comment, like and subscribe to the channel. There's going to be so much more content like this coming. Practical follow-alongs, insights from my own life and how I've got from myself from chronic pain, chronic injuries, multiple surgeries, to been moving better than ever before, feeling better than ever before, and living a completely different life. Lots of content coming in 2025. Be sure to follow along and subscribe to the channel and share this with someone you think is going to need it.